Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to the state of Florida to talk a little Jacksonville Jaguars. And of course, I am not doing this by myself. I brought on someone that keeps his keen eye on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's the News4Jax, Jamal St. Cyr. What's going on, man?
Hey man, appreciate you having me on, Mike. Good time of year. We all counting down to training camp at this point.
You're right, man. Definitely some interesting things always leading up to training camp. We're going to get in a couple of those, but first, we got to talk about the camp vibes, mini camp and the different OTAs and things like that. So, what was the feeling you gathered among the players that were present in the offseason program, looking at them and looking at them being active and involved in training camp and in OTAs, I mean.
Hey, look, they're locked in, man. One of the messages is, you got to push the boulder back up the hill. What happened last year doesn't matter. They know they have a very talented bunch, and they think it's a special team, and they want to put in the work and try and go out there and get winning. So Liam Cohen's been pushing them, and this is a group that knows they maybe didn't reach all their goals last season, even though there's a lot of patting on the back that goes on when you win 13 games and make it to the playoffs. But they still left some stuff on the table, they felt like, and they're trying to go out there and start from scratch and earn it.
Now, of course, that was what I was going to go into as well. The message. I know there's something, what was something Liam Cohen kind of happened to hopped on or harped on. I know he harped on the, start from scratch and things like that, but I know there's got to be some other things he's out there harping on in year two of his program as
Hey,
head coach of Jacksonville Jaguars.
I don't know if you're a Chappelle Show guy, but he said winning is a hell of a drug uh, um, during one of his press conferences. Yeah. So, I mean, look, and honestly, that was one of the things he's talked about this offseason is that, what were the things that winning hid from that football team last year? There are things that you aren't necessarily good at, but you find a way to win the game anyway. So maybe you don't harp on those little things. So one of the things that they've harped on that they really want to improve in is the running game, the screen game, because those are two things they struggled with at times last season that they were able to win games despite. But you got to improve in those facets if you want to be able to make sure you're taking those steps forward.
Yeah, definitely. You always got to look for those different things to get that edge. But speaking of guys not necessarily getting the edge, but looking over to somebody else getting their money and look, whoop, I get my money too. That would be Brenton Strange. Got that 3-year, $48 million extension with the $25 million guaranteed. What were your thoughts on that deal he signed when you saw those numbers come across?
Look, I think it's a good deal for the Jaguars. Brenton Strange is huge for what they do on offense. They were 11-1 with him on the football field last year, and I could make a pretty decent argument that the one loss probably shouldn't have been a loss. They should have been 12-0 when he played during the regular season. Look, Brenton Strange was huge. The last season was his first year as a starter. He was Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket. He was that reliable pass catching tight end, and he did the dirty work in the running game. He is honestly a road grader. He brings a lot of toughness to the football field for him. And as they start looking at, I mean, it's in vogue around the league to have these multiple tight end sets. So Brenton Strange locks you in one, and now they've drafted Nate Borkature, who should be their tight end two of the future. So I think they've locked up this tight end room because Liam Cohen's offense is quietly kind of tight end friendly. So having a guy like Brenton Strange who has a lot of the tools and really brings that toughness to this football team is huge. I think it's a team friendly deal. It's a good one. Get him off the books or keep him on the books.
Now, as far as just last season, he had career highs in receptions and yards with 554 receptions and 540 yards. This season again, like you mentioned, tight end friendly offense. You got Liam Cohen there. Of course, he comes from the Rams tree, which they ran a lot of 12 and 13 personnel last year. 13 personnel, actually, the Rams was probably the highest in the NFL. So you kind of expect the Rams or the Jaguars to be like Rams light with 2 or 3 tight ends a little bit more this season?
I think there's going to be times. Look, last season they struggled a little bit. I mean, they had a kind of revolving door at tight end 2. Hunter Long got banged up. Johnny Munt really couldn't give you much in the passing game. And then you were able to get Quentin Morris, who you kept in Jacksonville, but he worked his way up from the practice squad up to by the end of the season, he was tight end 2. So they drafted Nate Borkature in the second round. Not a draft pick that a lot of people love nationally and a lot of people were confused locally, but it goes to what they wanted to do, which is improve in those sets when they do want to go with those 2 tight ends. I don't envision an offense where they're going to, majority of the time run 12 and 13. I don't know if they're going to go that far on the other end, but I think it's something that they want to have in the pocket and be able to do when the matchup dictates itself.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that wasn't the only extension that happened this offseason. Trevon Walker, he got paid too. 4 years, $110 million, $77 million guaranteed, and $50 million guaranteed at signing. Man, they paid that man. So was it for you a matter of when, not if, when it came to the contract extension for Walker?
Yeah, look, this was a no-brainer. They were going to keep Trevon. I mean, I could say the same things or some of the same things I said about Brenton. Trevon is one of the toughest dudes in that locker room. They want to build a locker room full of tough dudes. I mean, he does the dirty work of being an edge in the NFL. I mean, he is an elite run stopper. He's gotten back-to-back, or last season he was hampered with injuries, but before that, he had stacked up back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. Trevon does all of the tough work out there on the football field. And he's the type of guy that they believe they can build this team around.
All right. So of course, so you spoke to the importance of getting this done. So with this deal, does it kind of heighten a little bit more that they think that he should do or could do, or does it make fans maybe think, hey, we need more sacks, more activity out of you, Trevon Walker?
The best version of Trevon Walker hasn't hit the football field yet. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. Look, at the end of last season, Liam Cohen talked to Trevon Walker in his closeout meeting and said, hey, I was on the team with Aaron Donald, and he absolutely wrecked practices. And he challenged Trevon. He said, I want you to be like that. I want to have to take you off the football field so that way I can run my offensive practice the way I need to. That's what he challenged Trevon with at the end of last season. Before last season, where Trevon had more injuries, he's self-described, said that's the most injuries he's had since college. He dealt with a wrist injury, dealt with a knee injury. He was banged up, missed games. Really the first time in his NFL career he's been banged up. So that one's kind of a blip on the radar. But prior to that, he had 10 sacks and 10 sacks. So he hit the double-digit sacks for back-to-back seasons. So he was on the incline, and things are going to keep kind of stepping there. And now you've got a coach that's telling him, hey, look, this is what I want from you. And both Trevon and Liam have both said, honestly, they've embraced that challenge to that point where Trevon's like, all right, if coach sees that in me, let me go and do it. And Liam's pushing him to do just that. So I don't think we've seen Trevon's best football yet because he's that kind of player. He has that sort of ability. And he's honestly in his NFL career got better and better each season. Last season, a little bit different because he was playing through injuries and just banged up.
Yeah, definitely can see that. Out there playing with did he play with a club on his hand at one point in time last year?
Had the club on his hand because he had surgery on the wrist. So then he was on the club, and then his knee gets hurt. So then he's got a brace on the knee. I mean, he was playing banged up. I think we asked him at the end of last season. He straight up said, that's the most injured he's been since college. And he just was trying to get back to full strength.
Yeah, that definitely is a rough one. I played with a club one time in high school, broke my hand. Playing defensive back and having one hand to bat down balls and defend wide receivers, man, that's a lose-lose scenario right there. But
that's tough.
Of course, very much. Now, of course, we're going to talk about, of course, the keep it on the defensive side of the ball, the Jaguars defense. And, there's one guy I want to talk about to start off with. And it's Trevon Walker's running buddy off the edge. That's Josh Hines-Allen. Now, Allen had an amazing 2023 season. He had 17.5 sacks, and that ended up, getting him a huge payday. Over the last 2 seasons, he has totaled 16 sacks. He's got a bunch of almost sacks too, by the way, a bunch of those. But they had a bunch of those before the 17 sack season as well. So how big of a year is this for Hines Allen to try to get back to what he showed in the 2023 season? And of course, are there trade rumors starting to be mentioned again, like they were a couple years ago before that big season happened?
No, no, Josh isn't going anywhere. They're not. That's not something that's going to circulate. That's not happening. Look, Josh has definitely been impactful. I mean, he's honestly been a game wrecker at times for the Jaguars defense. I mean, if I go start pulling back plays, it doesn't take long for you to start finding pressures that turned into interceptions from this guy. Whether he bull rushes his tackle into the quarterback, next thing you know, Antonio Johnson's got an interception going the other direction. That doesn't show up on his stat sheet, but that's him impacting the game, and that's the sort of impact that Josh has had. Have the sack numbers maybe been where they needed to be? No, but if you start looking at the quarterback hits, the pressures, he's there, and he's impacting the play and impacting the quarterback. One of the things that the coaching staff is harped on this season is they wanted to, or this offseason, is they're looking to improve the secondary because their feel is that Josh is that close, Trevon's that close, their guys are that close. The difference is, well, if the secondary can hold up in coverage just that much longer, then some of those pressures turn into sacks. So that's where some of the stuff with maybe Travis Hunter playing a little bit more cornerback starts coming into play and start trying to improve some of those spaces in the secondary, where if the coverage is sticky for just a little bit longer, then some of those pressures and quarterback hits start turning into sacks, and Josh's numbers look a whole lot different.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. I always Josh Hines Allen, I have always an interesting relationship when it comes to talking about him. I'd be like, man, he's almost there. But I say that so many different times. But you're right. Those pressures and that those people, the quarterback spilling the heat
Mm-hmm.
definitely cause some problems, especially for opposing offenses. But another guy that I want to talk about is that defensive line is Eric Armstead. Now, in the
Yeah.
offseason, beginning of the offseason, there were rumblings about him being gone. Like they gonna get rid of Eric Armstead. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. But as of right now, he's still there. Do you see a scenario where he is gone before the season starts, or is that all just a talk of possibilities of him being released, or is it kind of just gone away?
Look, I think we're probably in the Eric's going to be on the roster this season kind of era. Look, the Jaguars are tight on salary cap space. A way that they could have always freed it up is making him a post June 1 cut. It's not all necessarily play related. Sometimes it's just the simple mathematics of the game. But the way they've built this thing, Eric is going to be a key part on that defensive line. I think he had a good season last year. He injured his hand late, and that kind of stalled him out a little bit. And they've added Ruka Roro into the middle of that defensive line that's going to be able to spell him and give him some rotation. Honestly, I'm excited for what Rook's going to be able to bring to that defensive line group, and he gets a fresh start in Jacksonville after getting traded from Atlanta. So, to answer your question, look, I think Eric's going to be a Jaguar this season, and they need him to have one of his best seasons as a Jaguar. They need him to have his best. So right now he's healthy and he worked out during the offseason program. That's a first for him in Jacksonville. So that could be a good sign of things to come.
Well, we'll definitely see for sure. But of course, let me go back to Travis Hunter. You spoke of Travis Hunter, but he's back. But so is Jordan Lewis, who suffered a foot injury at the end of the season,
Yep.
didn't play in the playoff game. With Hunter Lewis, Jerry Jones, you've got re-signed Buster Brown. Excuse me if people want to call him his government, Monteric, but I'm gonna call him Buster. Back in the fold as well. What do
Yep.
you think of the Jacksonville Jaguars secondary in terms of the cornerbacks? And how much do you think the fate of it falls on Hunter and his abilities in year two?
Look, I think there's a lot of weight on Travis Hunter's shoulders, right? He's going to be tasked with playing both sides of the football, offense and defense. And he's definitely going to play a hefty load at cornerback on that defensive side of the football. Jordan Lewis is coming off of an injury. Jarian Jones is fighting for playing time. He's trying to figure out in that fold. Buster Brown, he's getting bumped up a little bit. By the end of last season, he was playing like he was CB1. So can he pick up right where he left off with the new deal? And now even a new number, he's going to be rocking the number one. The single digit numbers in the secondary, man, come with expectations. Got to play with a little swag out there. Look, so The DB room definitely has some question marks, and there's definitely a lot of weight on Travis Hunter's shoulders to be able to go out there and perform. But they have a veteran group and a group that has performed, whether it be in other places around the NFL or in Jacksonville. So I think they feel pretty good about where they're at. Buster Brown is another guy that really came on last season, played some of his best ball of his career. And now we get maybe a longer look at Travis Hunter at corner than we got last season.
Now, of course, with Travis, the talk about playing both ways and things like that. I honestly look at it and I'm like, yeah, I think they play him more heavy defensively than offensively this year. Is that the kind of feel you get, or is it something that I may be missing?
No, I mean, I think it's going to be that. I think this has been overblown. I mean, it keeps popping up and like, he's only going to play. He's going to play on both sides of the football. Is he going to play a lot of cornerback? Probably. And when we've asked James Gladstone, Liam Cohen about this, James Gladstone said at the end of the season, you can look at our roster and how it's constructed and get a pretty good idea where we need him to play right now. And that's the flexibility that he brings is which side of the ball do we need him at right now? Right now, the Jaguars need him to be a really good corner for them. They can use him at wide receiver because he's just special with the football in his hands. He's going to get opportunities at both. About that simple.
There we go. There we go. Now, of course, it's going to be interesting to me just to watch how that defense evolves. I know that, of course, last year they were really, really tough against the run, and then they were very, very opportunistic in terms of making, making plays and forcing turnovers. One of those guys that did that is Devin Lloyd. He's now gone to the Carolina Panthers, but now that opens up a spot at the linebacker spot opposite of Oluokun. And of course, competing for that spot is second-year linebacker Jack Kaiser and veteran linebacker Ventrell Miller. I know it's early and it's shorts and helmets, but has there been any hints at who's going to be the guy at that spot yet in Jaguars camp?
So Jack Kaiser is actually playing the other linebacker spot. He's more of a backup to Foye Oluokun. The guy who's competing with Ventrell is an undrafted free agent from a year ago, Branson Combs. So those are the two guys that are really vying for the job. I mean, there's some other guys that are trying to throw their hat in the ring, but it's probably going to be one of the two of them. Look, Ventrell's been around. He's shown what he can do out on the football field when he's gotten opportunities, and he can definitely fly around. The dark horse is Branson Combs. I mean, he's a guy who played wide receiver at the beginning of his college football career and switched to linebacker, but he's athletic. He made the roster a year ago as an undrafted free agent for what he could do on special teams. And when I got a chance to talk to the linebacker coach not long ago, he was raving about his athletic abilities. That if you see the kid play basketball, then you'll see what kind of athlete he is. So the question is, can he show that he can be a reliable linebacker because he's still so young at the position to be able to really compete with Ventrell, who's a guy who's played linebacker for a lot longer.
All right, and then any other players that maybe have kind of popped up on the scene during OTAs and minicamp that maybe people aren't thinking about?
A guy that kind of popped up. Look, I really like Tanner Kozel, late round tight end draft pick for the Jaguars. What he did in college was catch the football. And what he's shown so far through the offseason program is that he can get open and use his frame to catch the football. The question mark for him during the draft was that he wasn't really a good blocker in college, and that's what tight ends do in the way Liam Cohen runs his offense. Can he be special enough that Liam's willing to adjust how he uses this guy? Or can he be what he's basically told us after he was drafted, that he just needed to be coached on how to run block? It wasn't that he wasn't a willing run blocker. So I think they got something there. Maybe it takes a little bit of development. Maybe it's not this year, but in the near future, I like Tanner Kozel. I like what I've seen from the Jaguars' two rookie wide receivers too. CJ Williams and Josh Cameron both have looked good when they've gotten opportunities out there on the football field. But if there's a guy that I don't think's getting talked about enough, it's probably Parker Washington, man. Parker's a guy who's going into a contract year. He had played his best season as a pro a year ago when he finally got the opportunity. And this is going to be the first time in his NFL career he goes into a season knowing exactly what his role is. Look, Parker has been a standout every offseason that he's participated in the NFL. He's one of those guys where it's constantly like, man, Parker, 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 Parker. And when he's gotten opportunities, he's made plays. And he has earned Trevor's trust. And last season, there were throws that Trevor would make to Parker that he wouldn't make to anybody else. And that's continued to show up out on the practice field. That's a guy that's earned his quarterback's trust. He's going to get looks. He's going to get opportunities.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to see what Parker Washington can do with a full season of being, basically one of the guys that he looks at. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And Cameron's the kid from Baylor, correct?
Yep, that's him.
Now, I actually got to talk with him at the NFL Combine, and he is a kid that actually was a walk-on when he got to Baylor and earned his way to being the star wide receiver. So I'm very much excited to see how he develops and what he becomes in the NFL.
They were definitely looking for guys that got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, man. Josh Cameron, you mentioned, was a walk-on. CJ Williams was a guy that, kind of bounced around getting his opportunities. James Gladstone likes guys that have that chip on their shoulder, earn every bit of it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, of course, we're going to switch over to the offense. And, the name that's always been mentioned over and over and over and over, which, I'm going to say this. I think it's imaginary rumors. Brian Thomas Jr.'s name has been mentioned in trade rumors, and people have told me about this. And I'm like, come on, man, stop it. But he's still in Jacksonville. I'm not surprised he's still in Jacksonville. I'm just saying that for the people that thought he might not be in Jacksonville. He's trying to recover from a tough 2025 season. Had a few drops, things like that. Maybe looked like the confidence kind of suffered just a little bit. But, in this camp, how is he looking, kind of trying to rebound from that 2025 that's kind of a little bit up and down?
He's looked great. These have been some of the best practices I've seen from Brian as a pro. Flat out, he's looked great. He told us that, he was running pain-free, which was something that he struggled with last season. He was banged up. He dealt with a wrist injury at one point, dealt with an ankle injury. So it wasn't just like play-related. He's another guy that quietly dealt with some injuries that he was dealing with, but playing through. And did his play up to the level that people expected of him? No, he probably didn't reach that. But there's still a lot left there, and they're pushing him to get there. So these have been some really good practices from Brian. Consistent out there. He's gone up and made some really good catches, gotten down the football field to go and make plays. He looks like a guy who's primed to take another step. And keep in mind, last season he had something like 800 yards receiving, and we're calling that a down year. Like, that tells you the level of expectations that people have for this guy.
Right. I kept trying to tell people, like, what are we seeing that makes him need to be traded? I'm like, come on. I'm like, yeah, you got to be just trying to be fishing for him, or either that or you want your team to get him. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, look, the Jaguars have been trying to put weapons around Trevor for years.
Of course, go ahead.
They've been trying to put weapons around Trevor for years.
And they definitely got to keep those weapons. Yeah. Definitely. One weapon I will say that isn't there this year that I looked at and I was like, I had questions whether he was or wasn't going to be there this year. And of course, this offseason, it showed us that he wasn't. And that's Travis Etienne Jr. when he signed with the New Orleans Saints this offseason. Now the Jaguars have to replace him. They have Bashaw Tootin. Seems to be the leader in the clubhouse right now because, of course, Chris Rodriguez, the free agent acquisition from the Washington Commanders, dealing with a foot injury that required surgery this offseason, kind of off to the side. So with that, going on, do you expect Tootin to be the guy? Do you expect a rotation like in Tampa Bay that, things happen there and they end up eventually being Bucky Irvin being the guy? Or do you just expect Liam Cohen to go with the high hand when that happens?
I think there'll be a guy. The question is, who is that guy and when does he get the job? right? I think it'll be a split that'll be similar to what it was last season. Like, I think the only guy that really probably knows what his role is if Chris Rodriguez is healthy, he's the short yardage back for sure. I think we can lock that in. LaQuinn Allen is a fantastic pass blocking back, so he has a role in that. But as far as I think there's going to be a guy, there's going to be a bell cow running back. The question is who? Look, everybody's talking about Bashal Tutin, and I think he's probably got the lead right now. If you had to just say, all right, where are you ranking these guys? He's the guy who's going to get the first crack at it. Once Chris Rodriguez gets healthy and gets out there on the field, he'll have something else to say about that. But look, LaQuinn Allen was a guy who was productive at Syracuse in college. I mentioned him. He's a fierce pass blocker. He's a guy that's in the competition too. This thing is not settled. It might not be settled week one. It might take a little while, but somebody's going to separate themselves. I think there'll be a bell cow running back by the time you get a couple of weeks into the season. I'm sure they're hoping that they can figure out who that guy is sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to figure out who your running back is all the way through the season is not something you want to do. Of course, to talk about this team, in the run game, you got to have somebody in the trenches. You got to have some guys in there that are setting the tone. One guy I thought was a great draft pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars was Emmanuel Pregnon. I'm very, very high on him. Of course, he may get his shot early. He may not get his shot early, but at some point, he's going to get his shot. When the offensive line of the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they can do going into this season, being better in the run game, things like that. Hopefully for Jacksonville Jaguars fans, they're able to be even better in the run game this year. But what do you just think of them, Pregnon's, impact as well, just in the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line?
Look, it'll be interesting to see the health of this group when the season starts. That's kind of the question mark. Cole Van Landen had a late season injury. We'll see if he's ready to go for training camp in week one. He became their left tackle late last season. They gave him a contract extension. If he's ready to go, he's your left tackle. That locks you in there. You already got your left guard in Ezra Cleveland. You feel pretty good about him. He played some good ball last year. Robert Hainsey came in last season and you added. So you feel pretty good at that position. Right guard, Patrick McCarry dealt with back injuries all of last season. So he finally kind of feels healthy. His health, if he can be healthy and be the guy they thought they were going to sign, then that also helps that offensive line. Anton Harrison also took a big step forward last season. So the offensive line last year was improved from where it was the year before. If this group is healthy and it can take another step forward, then they're in good shape. As far as Pregnon, his path to seeing the football field this season, probably he played a lot of left guard in college. If he's going to see the field this year, it's probably because maybe McCarry gets banged up. If that back injury resurfaced and he can get on the field in that spot. If not, Ezra Cleveland's contract is coming to one of those points here soon. So then you start looking toward the future.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely was a big fan of Pregnon in college. I mean, yeah, that dude right there. Yeah, he brings the nasty. He definitely brings the nasty. And last but certainly not least, we can't go talking offense without talking a little Trevor Lawrence. He's a lightning rod for good or bad attention when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He finished the season strong last year with 15 TDs and 1 interception in the last 6 games of the regular season. What is your feeling on him and the things that he seems to be working on with Cohen this offseason and this year to create an even to take it up even another level out there on the field?
When he hit his stride last year, that was the best ball I've seen Trevor Lawrence play in his NFL career. And it looks like he's picking up kind of where he left off. Look, last season was different. The offseason, he was coming off of a shoulder injury. He wasn't throwing throughout the majority of the offseason until they kind of got to a point. So then he was just starting to throw. And he was having to learn this offense from scratch. Okay. Well, then you trade for Jacoby Myers midway through the season because you just lost Travis Hunter. So there were moving pieces around him. Now he's got continuity. Jacoby's in the fold. Parker's in the fold. Travis Hunter's in the fold. Brian Thomas is in the fold. He already knows the offense. He's had a healthy offseason. That's the type of situation that's set up for a guy to take a step forward and be able to take that big jump into the future. He knows this offense like the back of his hand, and he kind of had that mastery of it about midway through last season, and it showed up on the football field. So now you got continuity with guys, a mastery of the offense, and a coach that's going to put together a quarterback-friendly game plan week in and week out. Look, I think he's set up to have his best year as a pro.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. People will be watching, and they'll be waiting with bated breath either which way it goes. You already know when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. But I gotta say, man, definitely been fun talking some Jacksonville Jaguars and what all could and could not happen with the reigning AFC South champions. Now, Jamal, man, thank you for coming on, talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, giving me a lot of great insight and information, some that I did and did not know as well. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and on the news, man? On the news, check them out on the news, y'all. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, look, you can track me down on any social media platform, JSTCYR TV. And I keep track of the Jaguars. You can also find my work over on News4Jax and News4Jax.com. Yeah, looking forward to football season. Appreciate you having me on, Mike. Anytime, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. Of course, if you don't know, I'm the host of the show, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And Touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And we're also on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube, where you can find every single episode, play them backwards and forwards, and listen for all that keen and pertinent information that is on the show from me and my guest. I thank you all for coming to check out this show. Jamal, thank you again for coming on the show. We're out. Peace.